We've been lied to. We've been told that the path to mental strength begins with believing in ourselves, with building our self-esteem, with telling ourselves that we're enough. That if we can just love ourselves more, speak better to ourselves, affirm our worth more loudly, then we'll be strong enough to face anything. But that's not the truth. That's the gospel of self, and the gospel of self is powerless to save. Real mental strength doesn't begin with inflating your view of yourself. It begins with denying yourself. It begins when you stop bowing to your feelings and start bowing to something greater. We don't like that word, self-denial. It offends our modern sensibilities. It cuts through the soft layers of comfort and entitlement we've wrapped around our souls. We want to be told we're good enough, strong enough, wise enough. We want to be empowered, not emptied. But until you deny yourself, you'll never be free. Until you stop centering your world around your feelings, your moods, your opinions, you'll always be a slave to them. You'll never be mentally strong if your thoughts, emotions, and desires rule you. You must master them, or they will master you. Self-esteem is fragile. It depends on performance. It crumbles in the face of failure. It demands affirmation from others. It shifts like sand, rising when things go well and collapsing the moment life grows hard. That is no foundation for strength. That is a shallow well that runs dry when suffering comes. But self-denial, true self-denial, is a solid rock because it teaches you to anchor your worth not in how you feel, but in who you serve. It teaches you to act not according to comfort, but according to calling. It doesn't inflate the self, it crucifies it, and only through death does strength rise. The strongest people you'll ever meet are not the ones who think the highest of themselves. They're the ones who have learned how to say no to themselves, no to comfort, no to compromise, no to the easy road. They have learned how to endure hardship without complaint, to sacrifice when no one notices, to press on when they feel empty. Because their strength doesn't come from what they feel, it comes from what they've chosen. They've learned the discipline of dying to themselves daily, and that death is the very thing that produces life. We live in a culture obsessed with love, self-worth, self-discovery, but the more we focus on the self, the more anxious, insecure, and fragile we become, because we were never meant to carry the weight of our own significance. We were never meant to be our own source of truth, our own standard of worth. The soul becomes strong when it stops trying to prop itself up and starts surrendering to a higher authority, when it stops feeding pride and starts feeding purpose. And that purpose always demands a price. Self-denial teaches you how to suffer, not to collapse under it, not to run from it, but to embrace it, knowing that suffering has a purpose. It produces endurance. It purifies motives, it breaks pride. The world tells you to avoid pain at all costs, but mental strength is built through pain, not bypassed by it. If you spend your life chasing comfort, you'll never develop resilience. If you protect your self-esteem at all costs, you'll never learn perseverance. Self-denial teaches you that life is not about feeling good, it's about becoming good, and becoming good requires pressure. There's a lie that says you can be strong without sacrifice, that you can be mentally tough while still giving in to every desire, protecting every feeling, prioritizing your comfort. But strength and comfort do not grow in the same soil. If you want mental toughness, you must be willing to be uncomfortable. You must deny the voice in you that says just one more hour of sleep, just one more excuse, just this once. You must silence the voice of indulgence and learn to listen to the voice of discipline. That's where strength is born, in the moment you choose obedience over appetite. When you practice self-denial, you learn to do what is right regardless of how you feel, and that is freedom. Feelings are fickle. They change with the wind. They can't be trusted to lead. But when you learn to live by truth, not by emotion, you become unshakable. You stop being ruled by highs and lows. You stop being driven by approval. You begin to walk with purpose, with steadiness, with clarity, not because you've told yourself you're amazing, but because you've surrendered your life to something greater than your own happiness. Self-denial is not self-hate. It is not walking around with your head down, ashamed. No, it is the quiet strength of knowing you are not the center of the universe. It is the clarity to see that you were made for something bigger than your own comfort. It is the maturity to say no to things that feel good in the moment, but destroy you in the long run. And it is the wisdom to know that dying to yourself is the path to becoming who you were created to be. Mental strength isn't about self-expression, it's about self-control. It's not about doing whatever feels right, it's about doing what is right even when it feels wrong. That kind of strength doesn't come from hyping yourself up. It comes from humbling yourself, from placing yourself under discipline, from embracing structure, limits, and sacrifice. And yes, that goes against everything you've been told. But what you've been told has left you weak, anxious, and unprepared for the real world. We do ourselves no favors by constantly shielding ourselves from discomfort, by protecting our feelings at the expense of truth, by building our lives around self-affirmation instead of self-discipline. The mind grows strong when it is trained, not when it is pampered, and training requires pain. It requires endurance. It requires choosing what is hard over what is easy, what is eternal over what is instant. Self-denial is the backbone of mental strength. It says, I will not be ruled by my appetite. I will not obey every impulse. I will not worship myself. And in that death of pride, strength begins. A strength that can endure suffering, that can face rejection, that can press on in silence and persevere without applause, because the self has been brought low, and when the self is brought low, it no longer blocks the path to greatness. It clears the way for something stronger, something truer, something unshakable to rise. This is not the message of the world. The world says believe in yourself. I say deny yourself. The world says protect your peace. I say enter the battle. The world says you're enough. I say you were never meant to be. You were meant to be transformed, and that transformation begins the moment you stop living for yourself and start dying to yourself. That is where mental strength is born, in the ashes of pride, in the furnace of discipline, and in the quiet decision to say no to the easy road and yes to the narrow one. We don't want to hear this, but it must be said. Comfort is the enemy of growth. The very thing we spend our lives chasing is often the very thing keeping us from becoming what we were made to be. We wrap ourselves in ease, in softness, in convenience, and then we wonder why we're weak, why we're stagnant, why nothing ever changes, why we never become who we say we want to be. We've made our comfort our God, and we bow to it daily, and like all false gods, it demands sacrifice, but it gives nothing in return except a slower death. There is something in every human being that longs for security, for predictability, for peace, and that in itself is not wrong. But when that longing becomes our master, when we begin organizing our entire lives around what's most comfortable rather than what's most necessary, we start dying on the inside, slowly, quietly, our edges dull. Our ambition fades, our spirit becomes lethargic, and what we call rest is often just apathy dressed in the language of self-care. What we call peace is often just a refusal to confront the battle we were born to fight. The truth is, growth requires discomfort, always. There is no shortcut, no version of strength, maturity, or transformation that comes without pain. The moment you choose growth, you are choosing to leave comfort behind. Because real growth, soul, deep lie, faltering character, forging growth, only happens in the places where you're stretched, where you're tested, where you're pressed beyond what feels safe. It's in the struggle, not the sanctuary, where strength is born. You cannot become more without doing more, enduring more, being pushed beyond your limit, and then discovering you were capable of more than you ever thought. But we resist this. We resist it because we've been taught to believe that anything hard must be wrong, that anything painful must be avoided, that discomfort is a warning sign rather than an invitation, but in reality, it's often the very evidence that you're on the right path. Growth feels like breaking. Because in a way it is. It's the breaking of habits, the breaking of pride, the breaking of false identities, of lies you've believed, of dependencies you've built around your comfort. It's the tearing down of what is easy so that something stronger can be built in its place. The path of comfort is the path of least resistance. It asks nothing from you. It demands no discipline, no sacrifice, no endurance. It promises safety but delivers stagnation. You may avoid pain, but you also avoid purpose. You may be free from challenge, but you are also free from change. Comfort will never force you to become better. It will lull you into a false sense of peace, whispering, "You're fine just the way you are." And if you believe it, you'll stay just the way you are forever. But everything meaningful in this life is born through challenge. Ask any athlete, any artist, any leader, any parent, any person who has truly grown. None of them got there by seeking what was easy. They got there by walking through fire, by sacrificing when no one clapped, by waking up early, staying up late, pushing through pain, ignoring the inner voice that screamed, "Give up," and doing the work anyway. They didn't grow because they found a shortcut. They grew because they embraced the suffering that came with the process. We've built a world so padded, so protected, so insulated from difficulty that we are shocked when life actually demands something of us. We look for hacks, for life plans, for cheat codes that will give us the result without the effort. And when it doesn't work, we blame the system, we blame others, but we never stop to ask, have I been running from the very thing that could have made me strong? Because comfort is addictive, and once you start feeding that addiction, it will always demand more. More convenience, more ease, more escape, and before long, you've lost your edge. When you're too comfortable, you stop challenging your assumptions, you stop evaluating your patterns, you stop questioning your habits. You stop growing because comfort doesn't confront you, it flatters you, it tells you you're doing just fine. But the truth is you're not, you're stuck, you're drifting, and the longer you stay there, the harder it becomes to leave. That's the trap of comfort. It seduces you into stillness, then mocks you when you're too weak to move forward. Comfort is not a destination, it's a graveyard, a place where dreams go to die, where disciplines erode, where convictions fade, because nothing great is ever born out of ease. Growth demands that you do what is hard, that you show up when you don't feel like it, that you stay when others quit, that you lean in when everything in you wants to run. And that kind of grit, that kind of resilience, is not built in luxury, it is built in struggle, it is forged in fire. If you want to grow, you must learn to love the stretch. You must become comfortable being uncomfortable. Not because pain is the goal, but because transformation is, and transformation never happens without pressure. We don't grow by staying in what's familiar, we grow by stepping into what's unfamiliar. By leaving the shallows and entering the deep, by embracing the work no one sees, by choosing the narrow road when the wide one seems easier. Every time you say no to comfort and yes to challenge, you train your mind. You build endurance, you teach your soul that it can do hard things, and that is where confidence is born, not from a false sense of self, but from the battle-tested knowledge that you've been through the fire and survived, that you've faced the hard thing and come out stronger, that you've walked into discomfort, and instead of it defeating you, it shaped you. So don't run from discomfort, lean into it, welcome it. Let it break you where you need to be broken, refine you where you need to be refined, and build you where you need to be built. Because every step you take into the uncomfortable is a step away from mediocrity. Every time you choose discipline over ease, purpose over pleasure, conviction over compromise, you grow, you rise, you become, and the world may not understand. They may call it extreme. They may say you're too hard on yourself. But let them talk. They're not the ones living your life. They're not the ones carrying your calling. You know what's at stake. You know what kind of person you want to become. And you know that it will never happen if you keep choosing what's easy. Comfort may feel good today, but growth will carry you tomorrow. Choose wisely. We live in an age where motivation is idolized. People are constantly waiting for the right moment, the right mood, the perfect wave of inspiration to hit before they move, before they act, before they start becoming who they claim they want to be. But motivation is unreliable, it's emotional, it fluctuates, it's here today, gone tomorrow. You feel it on the mountaintop, but it disappears the moment you descend into the valley. It cannot carry you through the hard days, and there will be many hard days. If you're building your life around motivation, you're building on sand. Motivation is a spark that lights something for a moment. Discipline is a fire it burns steadily, regardless of the weather. Discipline is what remains when the motivation is gone. It's what keeps you going when you no longer feel like going. It's what drives you to do what is necessary when what is easy is screaming your name. And in a world where feelings rule, discipline is rebellion. Discipline is strength. Discipline is freedom because it refuses to bow to mood or convenience. It answers to truth, not feeling. Motivation waits. Discipline moves. Motivation says, I'll start when I feel ready. Discipline says, I'll start because it's time. Motivation says, I'm not in the right headspace today. Discipline says, it doesn't matter. I have a standard to uphold. Discipline is the decision to follow through on a commitment long after the emotion behind it has faded. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, it doesn't care about applause or recognition. It just shows up, day in, day out, doing the hard, quiet work of transformation. We've romanticized motivation because it makes us feel good. It gives us a high. It makes us believe that greatness is just a moment of inspiration away. But that's not reality. Reality is waking up when you're exhausted and still doing what you said you would do. Reality is pushing through frustration, boredom, distraction, and still producing. Reality is consistency without emotion, and that only comes through discipline. Discipline is not a feeling, it's a decision. And that decision is made again and again, every day, often without a single ounce of motivation present. The disciplined man doesn't need to feel like doing something to do it. He does it because it's right. Because it's required, because he gave his word. He trains when he doesn't want to. He studies when it's inconvenient. He works when everyone else is taking shortcuts, and that's why he grows. That's why he advances while others drift. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for the right conditions to act, but the right conditions rarely come. And the harsh truth is, if you need to be inspired to do what you should do, then you will never become what you were meant to be. You will remain dependent on outside forces to spark inner movement. That's not strength, that's immaturity. True strength is self-generated. It comes from within, and that strength is only built through the habit of discipline. Discipline doesn't care about how hard your day was. It doesn't adjust for your excuses. It doesn't lower the standard because you're tired or anxious or unmotivated. It simply asks, did you do what you said you would do? And that's a question many people avoid because they don't want to face their own inconsistency. But if you want to grow, if you want to become mentally strong, you have to stop protecting yourself from hard truth. You have to be brutally honest with your own habits. And here's the paradox. Discipline actually creates freedom. People think structure is limiting. They think routine is dull. But undisciplined people are the ones most enslaved. They are ruled by impulse. They are constantly responding to feelings. They live reactive lives, chasing pleasure, avoiding pain, never rooted, never anchored. But the disciplined person is free, free from the chaos of unpredictability, free from the tyranny of emotion, free to build, to grow, to create, because they are not swayed by every wave of circumstance. Discipline makes you dependable. It builds trust. It builds reputation. Because people know, you show up, you follow through, your word means something. You are not tossed around by how you feel today. You're anchored in something deeper. That kind of man or woman is rare. And that kind of person changes things because they can be counted on when the storm comes, and the storm will come. Discipline is not loud, but its results are. It doesn't boast, but its fruit speaks volumes. Over time, it produces strength that cannot be faked, results that cannot be denied, a character that cannot be bought. The disciplined person may not look impressive today, but give them a year, 2 years, 5 years. Watch what happens when someone shows up consistently, quietly, faithfully, regardless of applause. They grow, they rise, and they last. Motivation will always be tempting because it gives you a reason to delay. A reason to wait, a reason to indulge your emotions just a little longer. But every time you wait for motivation, you waste time, time you will never get back. Discipline seizes that time. It uses every moment. It doesn't care if the mood isn't perfect. It just goes, and that momentum becomes power. You don't need more inspiration. You need more obedience. You don't need to feel it. You need to choose it. The greatest athletes, thinkers, creators, leaders, they don't rise on waves of motivation. They rise on the back of discipline. They mastered their mornings. They trained through the monotony. They practiced when no one was watching. They understood that greatness is not the result of feeling, but of faithfulness. You may never be the most talented, you may never be the most charismatic, or the smartest, or the strongest, but you can be disciplined. That's a choice within your reach. That's a power you can build. Every day, without fanfare, without applause, just you, your goal, your standard, and your will. That's how strength is formed. That's how you become unshakable. So stop chasing motivation. It will betray you. Build discipline instead. Choose what is right, not what is easy. Be the kind of person who shows up when it's hard, who stays when it's inconvenient, who finishes what they start. Because in the end, it's not those who started with passion that will finish strong. It's those who endured with discipline. We are a generation that has been taught to trust our emotions, to follow our hearts, to interpret our feelings as truth. We've been told that our emotions are not only valid, which they are, but that they are sovereign, which they are not. We've been conditioned to believe that if we feel something deeply, it must be who we are. That if we're overwhelmed, then we're helpless. That if we're anxious, then we are anxiety. That if we're angry, then we are rage. But hear this, you are not a victim of your emotions. You are not at the mercy of your mood swings. You are not enslaved to every wave of feeling that comes crashing into your soul. You were not created to be ruled. You were created to rule. Your emotions are real, but they are not your master. You were never meant to be driven by whatever storm is swirling inside you. Feelings are indicators, not dictators. They are messengers, not kings. And while they have their place, they must never be allowed to take the throne. The moment you surrender your will to your feelings, you forfeit the strength of your soul. You hand over authority to something unstable. Emotions, by their very nature, are fleeting. They shift, they rise and fall. They're affected by sleep, by food, by hormones, by circumstances. So how can you build your life on something that changes hour by hour? You can't, and if you try, your life will reflect the chaos within. There is a quiet strength in learning to feel something deeply and still choose wisely. There is power in being honest about what you feel without being ruled by it. That's what maturity is. That's what mental strength looks like. It's not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of it. It's knowing that fear may scream at you, but you don't have to bow. That anger may rise in your chest, but you don't have to act on it. That sorrow may press heavy on your soul, but you are still capable of standing firm. We've bought into this dangerous lie that unless we express every emotion as it arises, we're being fake. That unless we follow our emotional impulses, we're somehow betraying ourselves. But what if the opposite is true? What if true strength lies not in full expression, but in intentional restraint? What if honoring your emotions doesn't mean obeying them, but understanding them, processing them, and then choosing a response rooted in truth rather than turmoil? Because feelings will lie to you. They will tell you you're worthless, that you're forgotten, that you're unlovable, that you'll never change. They will whisper failure before you've even started. They will convince you that every discomfort is danger, every hard day is hopeless, and every challenge is a reason to quit. But just because you feel it doesn't mean it's true, and just because it's loud doesn't mean it deserves your obedience. You were made in the image of something far greater than your emotions. You carry the breath of God, not the breath of panic. You carry the mind of wisdom, not the chaos of impulse. You were created with a will, a conscience, a sense of right and wrong. And every time you choose what is right in the face of what is overwhelming, you are stepping into your design. You are rising above the tide. You are refusing to live at the mercy of what was meant to serve you. We do not ignore our emotions. We do not suppress them, pretend they don't exist, or fake a smile when the storm is raging. No, feeling is part of being human, but feelings must be directed, not indulged, managed, not magnified, interpreted, not idolized. When sadness comes, acknowledge it. When fear arrives, name it. When anger burns, bring it into the light. But never let these things drive your decisions. Never let them control your character, because the moment they do, they've become your master. And the tragedy is, many people don't even know this is happening. They think they are their feelings. They say, I am depressed, as though their identity is fused to that state. They say, I'm just an angry person, as if anger is their birthright. They say, I can't help it, I just feel this way. And in doing so, they surrender the very authority they were born with. No, you are not your feelings. You have emotions, but they do not define your identity. You are more than what you feel in this moment. What's more, feelings are not only changeable, they are teachable, they can be trained, they can be disciplined. Just as the body can be conditioned through repetition and perseverance, so the heart and mind can be strengthened through truth, through perspective, through practice. Emotional maturity isn't a gift, it's a result. It comes from choosing over and over again to pause before you react, to breathe before you speak, to think before you act. It comes from reminding yourself, I am not ruled by this. I have the power to choose differently. And don't believe for a moment that this strength will come without resistance. Everything in you will want to respond based on how you feel. You will be tempted to lash out, to shut down, to run, to quit, to explode. But in that moment, when emotion is strongest, that's where your greatest opportunity lies. The opportunity to prove to yourself that you are stronger than what you feel, that you are not a slave to the storm inside you, that you are grounded, rooted, anchored in something deeper, because emotions come and go, but your purpose does not, your standard does not, your character does not. And when your emotions rise, you must ask yourself, will I bow to this? Or will I rise above it? Will I let this anger speak for me? Will I let this fear decide for me? Will I let this sorrow paralyze me? Or will I bring these feelings into submission, acknowledge them, yes, but still choose what is wise, what is right, what is strong? You are not weak for feeling, but you are made weak when you are ruled by those feelings. There is a world of difference between having emotions and being owned by them. Strength is not the absence of emotion. It's the courage to stand in the middle of it and not be moved. It's the refusal to be led by a voice that changes with the wind. It's the quiet decision to respond instead of react. You are not made to drift with every wave of feeling. You were made to steer, to command, to rule. So rise above the storm, stand firm, and when your emotions scream, don't silence them. Just don't surrender to them. Feel deeply, live wisely, and never forget that you are not a victim. You are called to rule. We live in a world obsessed with recognition. People measure their worth by the amount of attention they receive, the number of followers they have, the applause they earn. We have been conditioned to believe that if people see us, if people praise us, if people cheer us on, then we must be strong. We must be doing something right. But that's not how true mental strength is born. Applause may affirm you, but it does not build you. Compliments may feel good, but they do not shape you. Real strength, the kind that lasts, the kind that endures, the kind that carries you when everything else falls away, is not forged in the noise of admiration. It is forged in the silence of trials. It is in the fire that strength is formed. It is in the dark places where no one is watching, where no one is clapping, where no one is affirming you, that the real work is done. It's when you've been knocked down and no one is there to lift you. It's when you've failed and no one is rushing to tell you it's okay. It's when you feel forgotten, overlooked, misunderstood, and yet you choose to rise again. That is the place where strength is made, because trials expose you. They show you what's real. They show you what's left when the comfort is gone. They reveal whether your foundation was applause or conviction, whether your courage was rooted in truth or ego. Trials don't make you look good. They make you real. They strip away the performance, the pretending, the image you carefully crafted for others. They break the mask, and once that mask is broken, what's left is who you really are. That's where the building begins. That's where the hard shaping of your soul takes place, not in the moments of glory, but in the moments of grit. Not when everyone is standing and cheering, but when you are standing alone and broken. Applause is loud, but growth is silent. Strength is not formed when everything is going your way, But when everything is against you and you choose not to fold, and let's be honest, trials don't feel good. They're painful, they test you, they push you beyond your limits, they wear you down, and in that worn down place, you come face to face with yourself. That's when the excuses don't work anymore. That's when the fake strength dissolves. That's when the superficial confidence built on praise crumbles under pressure. Trials are brutal teachers, but they don't lie. They show you what you need to face. They force you to dig deeper than you ever thought possible. And if you're willing to stay in the fire, not run, not hide, not blame, then something solid begins to form inside you. That solidity is what makes you unshakable, because once you've survived the storm, applause means less. You don't need the crowd anymore. You're not chasing validation because you've already been through the furnace and you came out standing. You've tasted the loneliness of perseverance. You've felt the weight of continuing without encouragement. And because of that, your strength is real. It's not borrowed. It's not dependent. It's not fragile. It's yours. It's forged. But people avoid the fire. They chase platforms, stages, recognition. They want to be seen before they're strong enough to stand. They want praise without the price, but applause is easy to get and easy to lose. It shifts, it fades. People cheer one moment and forget you the next. If your strength is built on the approval of others, it will crumble the first time you are criticized. If your confidence is built on likes and compliments, it will shatter the moment rejection comes. That's why trials are not just unavoidable, they are necessary. You don't become mentally strong by being admired. You become mentally strong by being crushed and not giving up, by being misunderstood and not growing bitter, by being wounded and not letting it define you, by being alone and choosing to still move forward. That kind of strength doesn't come from applause. It comes from wrestling in the dark and refusing to surrender, and those who go through the fire without shortcutting the process, they emerge different. They don't speak with shallow confidence, they speak with depth. They don't pretend to be unbreakable. They know what it feels like to be broken and to rise. They have scars, not filters. They have stories, not sound bites. And when they speak, there's weight behind their words because they've lived through what others are only theorizing about. They've paid the cost that others try to avoid. You see, trials don't just build toughness, they build wisdom. They teach you patience, they teach you empathy. They teach you how to endure pain without becoming hardened, how to feel deeply without being ruled by emotion. Trials strip you of arrogance, they humble you. They teach you how small you are, and yet how much you can endure when you stop leaning on applause and start anchoring in purpose. It's easy to look strong when the wind is at your back, when the room is filled with praise and your name is being lifted. But who are you when the wind turns against you? Who are you when no one's watching? When the room is empty, when the spotlight is off and the silence feels suffocating? That's where your real self is tested. That's where strength is revealed, and if you can stay faithful there, if you can keep showing up, keep building, keep pressing on when no one is clapping, you are becoming unshakable. The ones who are truly strong are not the ones who look the part, not the ones with the loud voices and perfect images. It's the ones who suffered in silence and didn't quit. The ones who walked through fire and didn't lose their soul. The ones who kept their integrity when compromise would have been easier. The ones who stayed soft when the world tried to make them hard. The ones who never let the trial make them bitter, but allowed it to make them better. So no, mental strength isn't about applause. It isn't about who knows your name. It's about who you are when no one's calling it. It's about what's left when everything else is stripped away. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need the world's affirmation to do what's right, to keep going, to stay faithful. That kind of strength cannot be faked, it cannot be bought, it cannot be borrowed, it must be forged, and it is only forged in trials.